Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope you're ready for a webinar. We're going to have a lot of fun. Amanda has queued up a pretty fantastic little technique on everything. And I see we got darn near a full house. So welcome everybody. Both Jake and myself, I'm Jeremiah, by the way, will be here to triage and answer questions and get them queued up. So feel free to type in any questions you have in that bottom Q&A part of the window there. And just do be sure to keep the questions there if you just kind of want to chat amongst yourselves. That's that chat window on the bottom right. And I think that's all I'm going to yammer about and hand this right on over to Amanda. A little issue here with Amanda's microphone, so just 1 second here. And now we are handing this over to Amanda.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. I'm glad to see everybody here. It's good to know that so many other people are also aware that hand graphics is certainly not a dying art. That might be surprising to hear coming from somebody in a software company that specializes in computer graphics. But the truth of the matter is that we really want to encourage efficient workflows that give you the best design experience. For good design, you need time and a little hands-on time too. No matter what you do, I encourage starting your design with a sketch. Whether that be on a napkin at a cafe or trace after trace after trace on your base printout. Just while drafting with AutoCAD, Land Effects is very efficient for edits, and we'll kind of go into that. Brainstorming for your design still works best with your hands. And so that's why I completely encourage incorporating hand graphics into your workflow. You will find that if you do it at the right time, then it's actually going to be more efficient than if you tried to do it all on the computer. I find myself, or I find a lot of people that I've worked with, and also myself, sometimes you can just start staring at the computer and at AutoCAD, and because you're so zoomed in, you don't see the whole picture. That's sometimes what paper can allow you to get back to, is see the whole thing out on your desk. You're not limited by the size of a screen to get out your ideas for the design. So absolutely, you want to transition between both paper and the screen. So that is what we're talking about today. Pretty simple agenda, but we're going to pack in a lot into it. First, we're going to do a really kind of fun kind of conversation of when do you want to use hand graphics? And so we're going to kind of come up with some ideas for that. I'm going to show you an example of a workflow after that that works really well to transition from using hand graphics at the start and into CAD. And we're going to show a few cool tools that you may not have seen yet as well. Beyond that, I'm also going to show you some options for details. So you don't just have to sketch for your actual plan. You can incorporate sketch in a lot of areas to quickly get ideas on paper and then draft them up later or incorporate them into your plan later, even using Land Effects. So you can keep your details as a drawing, or you can even use them as a guide for drafting. So if you're the designer and you have a drafter in your office, you can do the hand sketch and then give the hand sketch to the drafter to either save into the system or to use as kind of something to not necessarily trace, but as a guide to then make that detail a lot clearer. So first off is, when is it a good idea to use hand graphics? You probably have a lot of ideas yourself. Some ideas that I've thought of just for the purposes of this webinar, definitely concept brainstorming. you want to work with those pieces of trace paper, or the idea of the aha moment when you're sitting in the middle of a coffee shop or something like that, and you grab a napkin and you happen to grab a pen and you start sketching that idea out. I know I used a lot of trace paper. Basically, what I would do is just like in this kind of image down here, I would start by printing out my base from AutoCAD, and then that would just be a really simple line drawing, just something to start working on top of so that I had my parameters and my scale to start working with. And then what I'd do is I'd start going with my circle template, and I put a piece of white or yellow trace over top, just tape it down very roughly, not even carefully, and then just start sketching. Usually I use like a blue pencil, so if I wanted to then go over it, if I was on a deadline, I could go over it with marker afterwards and scan it. And usually the blue one, if I chose the right color blue, it won't actually scan on most conventional scanners. Obviously, it will scan if you scan color, but if you scan black and white, it won't. That invisible blue color, I think it's called like magic blue. Um, and then if I'd sketch out an idea, and then if I was kind of going in the right direction, but it wasn't quite there, I wouldn't try and fight it and erase or try and go darker over different areas. What I do is I put a whole new piece of trace over, really quickly tape it on, really rough, and then just start drafting. This is probably very familiar to most of you who are watching. The next thing is a really quick concept for a client. So sometimes when you're drafting, it's not just this kind of quick thing. It's just going to go over to AutoCAD, and that's the whole purpose of it. Is just quickly to get your sketch idea down, get over to AutoCAD to start drafting. Sometimes your deadline is so quick that you need to actually just get something down super fast, scan it, get it to the client for an okay to proceed, because the time that you spend doing any kind of edit is always money in your pocket, right? So if you spend less time and you just do a really quick draft like this, maybe a little bit more color than this one has, kind of the interior gives you a better idea of what kind of quality you might want to give to a client, kind of at a minimum. For a quick sketch, what do you think about this idea? Or to talk about it with somebody else in the office, but make it look a little bit more professional and good. That would be great. And then once you get the okay or some edits, put another piece of trace over, make the edits, scan that back in, send it over to CAD to start actually formalizing it into a design. Because there are some things that you get from hand graphics. I mean, a lot of people are pretty good with hand graphics, but to get something that's extremely accurate and good for construction drawings, you need to spend a lot of time on hand graphics. So you can see here that my pathway was actually wider than I actually wanted it when I drew it in hand graphics. But when I went over to CAD, that gave me the opportunity to be a lot more precise for a construction kind of quality of drawing. So that's kind of the difference of when you might want to go back. Again, initial sketches of details as well. So I would do that if I wanted to sketch a new detail of a fence even. I might quickly sketch and with some very rough dimensions of what I wanted it to look like, and maybe some nice detailing in terms of the woodwork and what it should kind of feel like. That's really great for that. But then to get it over to construction quality, needed to bring it over into SketchUp or CAD. And we'll be going over this one as well today. And then, of course, there's also the high skill, hand done, just for a final graphic, something really special that's kind of your trademark, that this is kind of one of the reasons you're more of a sole practitioner or like a resort kind of place where you want some watercolor or the really high quality pen and ink drawings to give that really personal kind of touch to the design for your client. That is also definitely a great thing to do. There's a time and place for everything, and that's a cool thing to do. Not everybody has the time for that or the budget, unfortunately, but very cool idea. And then obviously, if you guys have any ideas through the webinar, I definitely encourage you to, we'll put questions in the question box if you have any questions kind of on anything that I'm talking about. That's on the bottom left of your screen. But if you have an idea for a great time or a time that you've used hand graphics in your workflow that might be different than the four above, definitely type it into the chat box and kind of chat about that with everybody on how you use hand graphics in your workplace. That would be kind of a cool thing to do over the next 45 minutes. So this is the plan that we're going to be working on in this workflow. So I've done a really quick, it's a little bit, it's quick, but this is kind of the level that I might send off maybe with a little bit cleaner handwriting than I've done in here, but send off to a client for a very initial kind of response of what do you think about this kind of layout of things? Is that okay for that amount of sod up here, or did you want more sod in more places? We were thinking of doing ground covers here, and they might come back and say, oh, I didn't necessarily want that many trees up here, and you kind of go back and forth on, oh, we need those trees because the city needs them for the boulevard trees, and continuing on like that, and kind of show them what you're planning on your design and have them buy into it with this nice kind of hand graphic. It doesn't feel, when you do it like this, for a very quick initial, this one took me probably max half an hour, even with the coloring, then you do it like that, that's a really quick edit. You haven't spent too much time on it, so you still have a lot of time for also designing. Obviously, you would have done a lot of initial concepts on trace before this, but this is kind of, okay, we're at a point we can talk about it and all of that. But you have this hand drawing now that the client has come back and they say, that is exactly what I'm looking for. That's what I want in on the design. Go ahead and make me some construction drawings for that, and we're going to move forward, or for drawings for submittal. So this is basically what we're going to work with. You can see I've already started calling out the different species of things. Things are generally the right size. I know a lot of you in the room have definitely used hand graphics before, so none of this is new to you. So let's get to the good part where we start actually incorporating it into CAD, because you have this. So the first thing that I want to talk about is how do you get it in there? Of course, we will go over the actual import function to bring in, this happens to be a PDF. But to bring this in, you can bring in PDFs, you can bring in, if you save it as a JPEG, you can bring in PNGs. So how you save it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't go as far as putting in a TIFF file. Those are very large and they will bog down your AutoCAD instance unless you have a really supercomputer, and even then it's not worth it. So stick with your PDFs and JPEGs and PNGs for the most part. Scale them down if you need to. Sometimes if you scan them, they'll be very large, kind of drawing, like actually physically or pixel wise very large, or like over 10 meg. You definitely want to keep the file size under 10 meg when you're bringing it into AutoCAD. Otherwise, again, it's going to slow down your AutoCAD, that big picture. We'll see how this one does as a PDF. I might resave it on the fly. But how do you actually get it to that point of being a PDF or a JPEG or a PNG? So lots of different methods. I worked in an office where we had this great large flatbed scanner, and that was extremely handy. If you're thinking about it, I completely recommend going for the big flatbed scanner. And what I mean is, it's more of like it was a Canon model, and basically it's just a long, thin piece. I should have brought up a picture for this, but basically it's a long, thin, and it's just one bar of a scanner, and you roll the paper in, and it sucks it in, and it goes through that one bar light and scans it all and spits it back out at you. And so it's not like it's taking up a whole table. It was more like a 4 by 1.5 kind of scanner, and it's just rolling that paper through, just like if you were to put it into a scanner on a printer or something like that. It's just rolling it past one little bit of light to capture each bar of the picture at a time. And that was great because it was so compact. That was a 24-inch wide scanner, so it could roll in 24 by 36 pieces of paper, which was perfect for using full scale 24 by 36 pages with trace on it. As long as you tape the trace down, worked just fine. Other methods, you can do what I did. So if you don't have the resources to splurge for a really big scanner like that, which is awesome, but you don't have those kinds of resources, you mostly just have your one plotter, or maybe not even that. You have to go to Staples or somewhere, printing shop, to print out your plans, and you might just have a 11 by 17 printer, which is the bare minimum I recommend. If I have a brother at home that does 11 by 17s, and you just put the paper in the back. That's great. But once it comes to scanning that, you can either get yourself an actual on-the-desk flatbed scanner for 11 by 17. I know there's a lot of products on the market where you can scan them through just like I described, only on a smaller scale. This scan, actually in particular, I used an app on my iPhone. So this one is Genius Scan I used, and it's really great because you can take a picture, like you put the white piece of paper. So this was an 11 by 17 sheet of paper, and you put the piece of paper on a dark desk, and you take a picture of the whole sheet of paper, and then it adjusts it for if your phone is not perfectly flat on top of the piece of paper. It will actually adjust the trapezoidal shape of that photo into a flat, so it's more to scale. So different ideas of how to actually get it into your computer. Obviously, choose the one that works best for you. This is not high quality enough. I would only ever use the app kind of situation for using this as a base to kind of work off of. I definitely wouldn't use it if I were actually scanning this image in to, say, send to a client, or I might maybe for this kind of quality. But if it was any higher quality of sketch, I wouldn't use the app for that. But still, kind of go back and forth between what you think is great. But those are some ideas. And then let's go on to actually drafting this little design here. So we'll start. So we've got this, and we need to get that into AutoCAD. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go over here to my plan, and I just have, this is going to be a gym design, in case you're curious. So we're kind of planning for something colorful, upbeat, to get people into the design, and that's what that was. So now we're going to bring in that PDF that I had scanned in using the app. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my XREF Manager. I normally go from here. You can also find it I believe it's in your insert. It'll be in a button in there, but I normally go through just the XREF palette here. I'm not going to bring in a drawing. I'm going to go down. So all I did was click on the down arrow, and I'm going to go over to attach PDF. And you can also type in PDF attach if you want to do that even faster. Lots of different ways to approach this. But beyond that, you can also see down here that you also have your image, and that counts for JPEGs and PNGs. So that's kind of why I go from here a lot of the time. And then I'm going to go ahead and grab that. So I'm going to go and find this. It's just on my desktop. Here we go. Go to webinars. And actually, I have it saved right here. I'm going to resave it over in base file because, so what I've done is I've scanned it and then I've saved it under here under my reference files. But what I'm going to do actually is move it into my base file because I want it to be in a location that's relative to the rest of my project. I don't want this to just kind of sit off on its own. I want to keep a copy here that's going to be untouched, and then I'm going to put a copy in my base file, and that one I know I can manipulate if I really need to. So let me go and just grab that. And I'm just going into that file over here. So I'm going to grab those, I'm going to actually grab both of them. That's a quick preview of what we're going to be doing later. And we're going to go over to my file where I'm saving all of my my CAD and my SketchUp and everything related to this drawing in terms of actual technical drawings. And I'm going to grab this drawing and save it, just make a copy. I did a Control V and a Control C, or a Command V and C to, that's for Mac, to just make a copy in here to use. And you can see this file is pretty small. It's just 1.2 meg, so it shouldn't bog down my drawing at all. Again, I said before, absolutely keep it under 10, definitely under 5 if you can. The smaller, the better. So put that back over here. And now I'll go back in here. And I'm going to go into CAD, and I should now find it here. That was the not the dash one. There we go. So we're going to go ahead and open that. It's just giving me a heads up that it can't do relative path on this particular one. That's fine. I'll do it as full path for now. Now, when you're doing a PDF or an image, if you haven't inserted one of these before, very important, that is different from inserting an X reference. You do want to specify on screen the insertion point. For an X reference, you wouldn't necessarily specify the insertion point on screen. You would want to keep that at 0, 0, 0 for a regular drawing XREF. But for inserting, attaching, referencing in a PDF, you want to specify the insertion point. You also want to specify the scale because we're going to set the scale later. Rotation, I'm just going to leave it as is because I'll rotate it manually if I need to. So great, if this is a multiple PDF, you'll see more pages and you can pick the one you want to insert. This is just a one-page PDF, so I only have one page available. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Okay, so we'll pick an insertion point. I'll do something kind of close by. And we'll just scale that in. Oh, and just put it over there. Okay. So now I'm going to kind of scale this onto here. I like to use Align a lot. You absolutely can use Scale if you want to. No harm in doing that. I'll show you the Align tool, and if you're used to scale using reference and rotate using reference, the Align tool is kind of a mix between the two. So I'll go ahead, and that's Align, so A-L-I-G-N. and it will ask me to specify my first source point. So I want something very finite. So I'm actually going to choose a point on the building. And usually for a line, I want to pick 2 points that are kind of far apart from each other because that'll get me the best rotation and scale. So actually what I'll do is I'll click the end point, or this point right here of the curb. And I can't really snap to a PDF. That's a raster PDF. So I'll just do that. And now it's asking me for the second point. So I'll go and find that same second point just down here, and I will snap to this. Great, and I'll turn off snap, and we'll do our second point. So something down here. So let's do the same thing just with this curb point. And we'll find that curb point down there, and I will tapping F3 to snap and tapping to turn it off. And now it's asking to specify a third source point, and we don't need to do that because we're working in 2D. So I'm just going to right click to accept continue. And now it's asking me if I want to scale, and yes, I do for this image. So I'm going to type Y for yes and press enter. And so that's placed that on top. It's actually on top, so I'm going to throw it to the back by, I'm just clicking on the edge of the PDF. And I can either, there's buttons up there, but I'm just going to right click, and my right click settings are set up so that I get this menu. If something is selected and I right click, I get the menu. That's usually the default settings, but sometimes, so if you're finding you're right clicking and you're not getting this, that might be why, and you need to go into your options. And then I'm going to just go down to arrange, if I can see it, draw order, sorry. And I'm going to send that to the back. And now I can see all my line work on top. And I might even just make this a little bit, give it a little bit of fade. So if you have one of the more recent versions of AutoCAD, you've probably noticed this in the ribbon. I click here and it pops up the PDF underlay ribbon. So I'm just going to add a little bit of a fade to that. Come on. Or we'll type it in. We'll give it something like a 40. There we go. And that way, if something ends up underneath it, I can still see that thing that ended up underneath it. So you can see that's a pretty good match. Might be a little bit off in places, but it's good enough to start actually drafting from. So this base happened to have a lot of the edges already defined. Oh, and one more thing I'm going to do. Sorry, before we go on to that, I'm going to put this PDF on its own layer. So I'm going to go over to my layer tab, layer manager. I just type layer to open it up. I'm going to go ahead and I usually make like kind of down here at the Z or Z point, I will make a new layer. And I'll call it something like XREF, and I'll just call this PDF base. And I'll just put this one onto there. There. Now, while I'm drafting, at any point in time, I can go down here and freeze that on and off to make my drafting a lot faster as I go along. So we'll do the reference notes first. So this is kind of the area of all the heavy reference notes in this drawing, and that's going to be this boulder area, which is also we're going to do a detail of a little later. So basically what I'm going to do is just start kind of laying out all of the areas for that. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to just trace around this area first. So I'm going to turn off or freeze my PDF really quick. I'm going to make sure I have enough layers to draft on. So I don't. So I'm going to go ahead and add some layers from some of the layer states that I like to use. I'm going to go over to FX Admin. I'm going to go to Load Layer State. I'm going to go to Plans, and I like to use the site base one, and I also like to use the landscape site one because that gives me a good range of layers to start placing things on. And if I get to the end of the drawing and there's still lots of layers, I can always do a purge to get rid of the ones I haven't used. And it also gives me a good baseline to start adding in new layers if I need to for whatever I'm drawing. You can also, in your office, if you haven't done this already, you can save a layer state. So if you go into a brand new drawing and start making all of the layers that your office normally uses and drafts on and that you want people in your office to draft on, you can, in a brand new drawing so that those are the only layers there, you'll make all those layers, you'll set them appropriately with the right color and everything, and then what you're going to do is go to Save Layer State, and you can actually save it into this list so that you can make your own folder here called My Office Layer State, or whatever your office is, and you can go ahead and pick from there. So really cool tool right off the bat to get drafting pretty quickly. And so I'm going to go ahead and find a area, and we're actually going to make our own, but kind of in with the style of how things are in here. So I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to make a new layer and I call it L. We'll call it drainage. And I'll call this aggregate. And I'm just going to give it a color so I can see it as I draft. And we're going to go ahead. I'm going to use the Polyline tool. I always use the Polyline tool. Never splines, you'll always hear me say that. And I'm just going to start tracing. Undo. That was a U and enter for undo. And you can see if this is a curve, so I'll go into arc and you'll see it's not going to align right away, but it will later. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit the endpoints to trace this. And if I make a mistake, I can always fix it later. That's an undo again. And I'm almost at the end, and I'm just going to do a C to close it. And then I'm going to grab this again, and I'm going to grab it. And I always have on my O snaps, sorry about that, get rid of that. There we go. I always have on my O snaps down here endpoint, intersection, and perpendicular, because those are usually the most common ones. And that way, things like nearest and center don't get in the way when I'm trying to snap to other things, so I don't get too many snap options. You can always, if you want to use nearest, if you don't know about this already, you can hold down Shift and then right click, and you get temporary snap points. So I can temporarily go to quadrant or go to nearest, and we'll try that again. I'll do that, nearest, and it temporarily allows me to pick a nearest point, and then if I go again around, I don't have nearest as an option anymore. So really quick ways to draft. So I've got that in place, so I'm going to turn on my base layer again, and we're just going to see how we're going to place everything in. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually place my rocks, and then I'm going to place the area around the rocks, and I'm going to do a little bit more in there as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my, under FX Site, we're going to go to Reference Notes, and we're going to start putting this in. So I have none in here because I've started a brand new drawing. So if you haven't started a drawing yet on yours, of course you always need to start a new drawing. I happen to have a blank drawing that I've already started that is attached to this drawing. I've been doing some work on it already, so I can just grab that one and make it active. Key point there, it's empty. You don't want to do this and grab a project that already exists unless you know it's empty and it's not assigned to any other project. That can definitely get you into a rabbit hole of trouble. So that's assigned. I'm going to go back. I'm going to also make sure I have a scale assigned because I'm starting to place reference notes, so that's important. You can set your scale to either imperial or metric, whatever you happen to use. Exactly the same. There's no difference. Everything in Land Effects is going to scale appropriately. So I'm just going to pick one that I know I'm going to use in my final layout. I've already started a layout. I've already set it to a scale. So I'm already ready to go in that sense because I had to set it to a scale to print it out to do this sketch that I've done. Get rid of that again. And so I'm going to go back to model. But yeah, so we're going to go over and start placing in reference notes now that we have a project and a scale assigned. And so I don't have anything in here, so I can either press new and start making some new ones, selecting amenity, setting it to different things. I'm actually going to import some. I use these same materials in a lot of different kinds of drawings. I'm going to import it from another project. You can also import it from a template. And I'm going to grab a few in here. So I'm going to grab my drainage trench. I'm going to grab all three boulders. I just held down Shift. So I clicked once, held down Shift, clicked the last one. It selects all of them. I'm going to add that to the project. And I'm also going to grab some river stone. I might need that, and probably the bench. And now all of that's now added to my reference notes. If you haven't done this sort of thing before, definitely go to our website, type in template into the ribbon bar, or type in not the ribbon bar, the search bar, or type in import tool into there, and you can find some more information on how to grab those really quickly, and everything's already assigned. And so I'm going to grab some of my large granite boulders, and I'm going to show you something really cool about this that we're going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this. And you can see I've already assigned everything. It's already in a division. It's got a number. I haven't assigned a cost, but I can. Let's say this thing might cost somewhere around $600 because this is large. It's about I believe 3 feet wide, long, sorry. But when I go into here, basically I've chosen this from the generic already available from Land Effects, and so I've gone to boulders. And you can see we have a lot of boulders available to choose from. But what I've done is I've gone ahead and picked this really special one down here, the 600D. And what that is doing is it's a 6 foot. It is a dynamic block. That's what that D is here. So all of these are single rocks. But I want to have a reference note that only applies to, has a lot of different types of boulders that are possible to reference from it. So they're all going to be 600, but they're going to be different shapes is basically, and I'll show you how that works. So I've already chosen that. I'm going to cancel out of that. And if you don't have those available, we have definitely ask us. We can put you in the direction of the article on our website that will give you directions on how to get them, because they are kind of new, a new cool feature that Jake has been very busy creating along with Paul. So let's go ahead and grab that one. We're going to say OK, and we're going to place this. Of course, it worked yesterday. I'll go ahead and choose it again. Did some fancy footwork. Here we go. There we go. I'm going to say OK. Great. Okay, so there's my boulder. It's 6 feet long. I'm going to start placing them along in here. Great, but I want a different shape. So I'm going to type, if you're familiar with the plant shotgun tools, you'll be familiar with these keyboard keys. If you're not, please use place a plant and you'll see keyboard keys, keyboard shortcuts. Type K and you'll see all of them. But for here, I'm going to type Q and E and I'm going to rotate between different shapes. So I'm going to move that over here. So all I'm doing is typing E and it's rotating between different shapes because this is a dynamic block. So I'm going to place that one. And I'm going to place, it's gone to the first one. I'm going to place that one. It's gone. We're going to place that one and I'm going to go quickly between them. And you can see all the different types of boulders that I can go in here. So I'm not gonna do the whole thing, but that's a really cool feature. I can also, if I want to, I'm gonna exit here. I can splatter around with some other smaller blocks from my other reference notes, but I'm gonna do a polyline. And it doesn't matter what layer I'm on right now because I'm going to delete this polyline after. But basically, I'm going to go around and, oh, that wasn't drawn perfectly. Let's try that again. I'll just do it in that direction. And I'm going to go around and through. And we're going to do this. We're going to grab this guy. And I'm going to snap him to the end here. And one thing I also forgot to show you is, you see this? This means it's a dynamic block. I can tap down on here and I can change this to any of the other ones in the list of them. But we're going to go through this one and we're kind of do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a copy along a line. So first I'm going to show you copy along a line and what it's doing. So I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to give it a space. Maybe I'll give it a little bit more. I'll do best fit, but I'm going to check this random rotation. And that's the important bit here. I'm going to say OK, and you can see it's doing random as I go out. And if I go back in, it'll do a different random. And if I go back in, it will do a different random. And it will keep doing that until I find what I want in terms of a random setup. So I'm going to try and do this just along that line. We're going to select this block. I'm going to give it a little bit bigger. That wasn't quite big enough. And I'm going to say OK, and we're going to go ahead and select that polyline, and you can see it's already placed it around here. And I can go in and then just really quickly do some rotates and fit that in a bit better into the area. But now I've really started to just quickly draft into here. And I'm going to get rid of that line. I mean, for this one, I might want it a little bit more random, but I can always just grab them and move them over a bit, and it's a bit more random. But that's really quickly starting to draft all this together. And I'll move that one in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and grab another reference note. Let's grab some medium. I'm going to place those. Great. And I'm tapping between because this is another dynamic block that's in that list. And we'll go back. I right-clicked to go back, and I'm going to click small, and I'm going to click place, and this is just my 1-footers, and we're just going to place those in. And you can keep going. I would keep going along and filling in this entire location, but we're kind of on a timeline in terms of what we're going to do with this webinar. So I've started to draft in here. I can now also do the same thing for trees. I probably would grab a sod and place that into the reference note in here and just really quickly start drafting this up. So I can go into planting. I've got nothing in here. I'm going to import from another project and just grab all of those. And I'm going to go to my shrubs and I'm going to import. And I'm going to import from that same other project or a different project or a different template. And just start placing those. So for trees, I can just go in here. I'm going to start docking. I'll undock that and you can see what I did. Clicked dock. And it's now over here and I can start placing these. So I'm just going to double click. And it's not quite popping up above my PDF, but I'm going to place it and it should pop back once I get out of here. I'm just going to grab this and send it back to the back. You can see those are in. I kind of drew these a little bit small. That's okay. It still works with my plan. And I can keep going through and kind of placing these along. There we go. And so you can see that using the sketch allows me to really quickly place everything in my drawing because I'm not so much guessing on things. Maybe that's now that I placed it in the drawing, it was drawn a little bit too small. Now I know I can only really fit one in that island, so I can make some kind of decisions as I go along and I'm drafting. Now that things are a little bit more accurate. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that and I'm going to use, I'm going to use my match plant. And I'm going to grab that and place it down here as well. And you can go in and start filling all of these in and go back into my reference notes. And I'm actually going to place my drainage trench. So everything's just starting to come together. Obviously, a plan like this is going to take a little bit more than half an hour to draft, but once you have it in there, it's going to be very clean looking. If I go into my layout space, I can actually make it so that in my layout space, I'll just type in layers and open up my layer property manager, and you can find that layer that the PDF is on, and I'm going to go over. So I'm just scrolling over until I see VP freeze. And VP freeze, by the way, is active viewport freeze, as opposed to over here, new viewport freeze. That means it won't freeze it in this viewport. It will freeze it in the next one that you create. You want active. So I'm going to go down here. I could freeze it from right in here. I can freeze it from over here. I will go over and just freeze it from down there. And you can see down here that it has frozen. And so now I can go back and forth between model and here, and it will always be turned off here. And then I can, once I've kind of got my plan going, I can just turn on colorization with all of my plants that I've placed in here. And we're off to the races in terms of something a little bit more professional, clean-cut looking for construction-ready drawings, or something a little bit more formal in terms of a presentation than just quickly bouncing ideas off of the client. The last thing that I wanted to talk about then with that's kind of starting to go into that workflow, and obviously you follow along with it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was details. So here I have a detail that I've drafted up in terms of how I want that trench to actually work. This is really quick. This might be something that I would sketch up in order to give a drafter who would then draft it much more cleanly than I have done here. This is obviously not something that I would necessarily want to save into my system unless that's kind of your style that you normally use. But this is more, I drafted it in 3 minutes and I want to give it to a drafter to now draw out. Instead of trying to describe it, I'm doing it very loosely, and I kind of using the line weights that I want my drafter to use. That's also important, so that it's very clear in terms of what you're communicating to your drafter. So I'm going to go ahead and really quickly create a detail on that. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to open up a new drawing. If you're in Imperial, you're going to grab your inches template that you've created using our sheet set webinar. If you haven't watched that, highly encourage you, go to our webinar page, find the sheet set webinar, and watch it if you don't have these available to you. I'm in metric, so I'm going to use millimeters. But it's going to be the same process for both. I'm not even going to be using scale in terms of this one in particular. But you can. So I'm going to go. I've saved that. I'm going to actually save it somewhere because I'm going to XREF something in, or I'm going to insert. So I need to save it. So I'm going to go ahead and just save that to my desktop for now, or actually, sorry, into my project file. But it's just going to be a temporary save location. CAD, we'll go into base and we'll put it in here. And we'll just call this trench detail working. Save that in there. Great. Now that it's saved, I'm going to bring in that PDF again. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to go to PDF or image if you're doing a JPEG. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to say open. Great. Everything's exactly as I want it. And I'm going to scale it in. And for the purposes of what I'm going to show here, I'm not going to scale it, but you can, obviously, or yeah, I will. Let's do that really quick. Rotate, F8, there we go. I'm going to grab this and I'll show you the not align version of this. So I'm going to SC enter for scale, and it's saying specify base point. I'm going to just specify a base point. Now you've got some options. So I want this to be more accurate. So I'm going to use this 3-foot dimension that I've created to get something along the lines of where I want this to be. So I'm going to go ahead and do a reference. So R for reference down here on the command line. Specify reference length. Instead of typing it in, I'm going to actually specify it. So I'm going to type here, and I'm going to go here, and specify a new length. I'm going to type in 600 because that's millimeters for, 900 is millimeters for 3 feet, and that's the scale. Now I can either go ahead and bring in my, well, first I'm going to bring in a template, but after that I can trace this, or I can just save it as is, and which is what I'm going to show you in this case. So I'm going to go over here to my FX details, and we're going to do a template, and probably 1 to 30. Let's try that. A little bit smaller. I right-clicked. Yeah, that looks good. And that's ready to save. As long as this PDF is entirely within the bounds, you're fine. And if it's not, you can click on it and create a clipping boundary for it to clip it inside of the bounds of the detail. I can go ahead and save that detail. I'll do it in a project. I'll say this is a commercial. We'll give it a name. That was active gym. And my code is going to be my project number. And oh, Happy New Year, everybody. Apparently I haven't caught up. So I'm going to save it in here by clicking select. We're going to give it a trench section. There we go. And I'm going to quickly add that to the project I'm currently working on, which is my active gym. And it's been saved. I'm going to go over here. And I'm just going to duplicate this. Move or copy, move to the end, create a copy. So I right-clicked, move or copy, click move to the end, and create a copy, and press OK to get a copy of this layout over here. And I'm just going to delete all of this and create a sheet template. I'm going a little fast, so that didn't quite work, but we'll go with it. And I'm going to go open to my manager, and I've already, the trench section is in here. Keep in mind this preview won't show the PDF, but it's there. Don't worry. As long as you see that bounding box, it's there. I'm going to place that, and you'll actually see the reference for that PDF come in. We'll give this a D1. And you saw the reference came in. I'll place it, just exit, and you can see it right in there. So different ways that you can use your hand graphics and save them right into Land Effects and start using them in your workflow with this program. So I know I said before, a little earlier, now's a good time. We're going to kind of jump into some questions. And before I jump into some questions, I know I said earlier, what kinds of ways are you guys using hand graphics in your workflow? So we've had a little bit of time to do that. So let's see what we have. I don't know if Jeremiah, you've been following that to see if there's some really good ideas.
Oh yeah, definitely. Lisa and Cassidy chimed in the chat there with a good comment about how hand graphics tend to keep the client more engaged, making the client feel that it isn't such a finalized thing and that they can, recommend and change things, as if there's a eraser and we can all kind of take part in that. So that was a really good feedback there. And on a technical side, interesting feedback from Mike in that he's generally had just a lot of problems with PDFs. And so he tends to always just attach things as JPEGs, which he finds to be a lot less problematic. And so that's interesting. And I'm not sure if you've noticed any difference in attaching PDFs versus JPEGs yourself.
I've found the biggest difference is that PDFs tend to be, once they get larger files, so once you get a 10 meg JPEG, or sorry, a 10 meg, JPEG versus a 10 meg PDF, usually the JPEG will still have no problem in AutoCAD, but the PDF will completely bog it down. PDFs definitely keep that number under 5. JPEGs you can usually cheat a little bit because this PDF just happened to be a picture of an 11 by 17 piece of paper. So that's not too big. But once you start scanning full 24 by, you have a PDF of a 24 by 36 sheet of paper that you're trying to bring in, that is inherently going to bog down AutoCAD in terms of how complex and big it is. So that's normally where I see the problems pop up with PDFs. And yes, in that case, if I'm trying to bring in a 24 by 36 scan, I always save it over to JPEG because, and not even PNG. I go straight to JPEG. It's simple. AutoCAD can handle it.
Oh, fantastic. And actually, one of my new favorite ones ever here. Daryl said a lot of people said that the align command is one of their favorites. Daryl said they like it so much that they call it Big Al, which I love that. um, I think Jake and I answered a few of the other questions, and if we didn't get to anybody's questions, do feel free to email them in. But I think it's time for us to wrap this up and just wish everyone a fantastic weekend and keep the ideas coming for future webinars like this. And have a good one.